I stood frozen in the crowded auditorium of Dunbar High School in Chicago, my heart pounding as my name Nia Thompson flashed across the projector screen, paired with project lead, Lucas Bennett. The room erupted in cheers, but not for me. Lucas, the 6'2" golden boy with a politician's smile, waved to the crowd, basking in the spotlight for an AI app I'd coded alone. Every line born from my sleepless nights and relentless drive. He'd just lied to 500 students, teachers, and a local news crew, claiming he built our project for the national coding competition, a ticket to a $75,000 scholarship and a Google internship. My 5'4" frame trembled with rage, my fists clenched, but my voice stayed trapped, silenced by the weight of being a black girl in a world that always believed him first. As he grinned, his blue eyes flicked to me, daring me to speak. I knew this wasn't just theft, it was a calculated act of erasure, rooted in the racism that assumed I couldn't outshine him. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot, and as the applause faded, a fire sparked inside me, one that would burn brighter than his lies. I'm Naya, a 17-year-old coder who's always been underestimated, my braided hair and quiet demeanor making me invisible to those who don't look twice. Growing up on Chicago's South Side, I learned early that talent isn't enough when the world's rigged to favor guys like Lucas. My dad, a CTA bus driver, and my mom, a librarian, taught me to fight for my place, their pride fueling my late nights hunched over my 13-inch laptop, crafting algorithms that could rival a pro's. When Ms. Carla Jenkins, my computer science teacher, announced the competition, I saw my chance away to escape the shadow of being that smart black girl and step into a future where my code could change lives. The project was to build an AI app for urban safety, and I dreamed up one that analyzed crime data to suggest safer walking routes, with a feature to alert nearby community centers if someone felt threatened. It was personal last year. My cousin got mugged 2 blocks from home, and I wanted to make our streets feel less like a maze of fear. I poured my soul into it, testing data from Chicago's open crime portal, my screen glowing past 2 a.m. as I debugged errors. Ms. Jenkins, a 45-year-old black woman who'd clawed her way through tech's glass ceilings, saw my potential. "Naya, this is your moment," she said, her voice steady, and I clung to that, even when Lucas was assigned as my partner. Lucas was Dunbar's darling, a senior whose dad ran a loop law firm and whose charm made teachers overlook his CA average effort. He sauntered over, tossing his backpack on my desk. "We're gonna crush this, Naya," he said, but his tone screamed he'd coast while I carried us. I wanted to trust him, to believe we could share the load, but his first move was to skip our planning session for a pickup game at Washington Park, leaving me to map the app's framework alone. For the 25 to 55-year-olds who've faced workplace snakes or seen their kids sidelined, this hits hard. Lucas wasn't just lazy. He was banking on the system that rewards white confidence over black brilliance. I pushed forward, coding in the school lab, my headphones blasting jazz to drown out the chatter. My app took shape, predicting safe routes with 92% accuracy and sending alerts to centers within 500 feet. I tested it on my walk home, my sneakers hitting the pavement as my phone pinged a detour around a dicey corner. Pride swelled in my chest, but Lucas barely glanced at my progress. "Just make it look good," he said, scrolling X on his phone, his 10,000 followers hyping his genius vibes. I swallowed my frustration, my dad's words echoing, "Keep your eyes on the prize, Nia." But keeping quiet was harder than coding. Lucas's attitude wasn't just arrogance, it was a power play, rooted in the belief that my work was his to claim. He'd drop by the lab, leaning over my shoulder, asking dumb questions like, "So, this AI stuff, it's like Siri, right?" I'd explain patiently, hoping he'd engage, but he'd just nod and leave, his mind on the next party. My best friend, Aisha, a debate team star, saw through him over lunch in the cafeteria. She stabbed her fork into her salad. "He's using you, Nia. Call him out." I sighed, my tray untouched. "If I do, they'll say I'm overreacting. You know how it goes." Aisha's eyes softened. She'd faced her own battles as a Muslim girl, but she pushed. "Your code's too good to let him steal it." Her words stuck, planting a seed of defiance, but fear held me back. I'd seen how teachers dismissed complaints from kids like me, how they'd praise Lucas for leadership while I got works well independently. It's the kind of subtle racism that stings worse than a slap, the kind that makes you question your own worth. I started logging my work, not just for myself but to prove I wasn't invisible. On my laptop I created a digital diary, time-stomping every milestone. 11:47 p.m., added alert system. 3:02 a.m., fixed data glitch. It was my truth, a record no one could erase. Ms. Jenkins noticed my long hours, her brow furrowing. "You're doing all this alone, aren't you?" she asked, her voice low. I nodded, my throat tight. "Don't let him take your shine, Nia," she said, and I felt a spark of courage, like I could fight back even if I didn't know how yet. But Lucas was already moving, his plan sharper than I'd guessed. At a class meeting he started talking up our app, his voice smooth, his lies bolder. "Nia's helping with the details, but I'm driving the vision," he said. "And A few classmates clapped, buying his act. My stomach twisted, my hands shaking under the desk. I wanted to stand, to say, "He's lying," but the room felt like it was closing in, every eye waiting for me to prove I was too much. I stayed silent, hating myself for it, but Aisha's glare from across the room said she wasn't letting this go. That night, I sat with my dad at our kitchen table, his calloused hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "Lucas is gonna take credit," I blurted, my voice cracking. Dad leaned back, his eyes steady. "Naya, folks like him think they own the stage. But you built the show. Find a way to let your work sing." His words hit deep, reminding me of the 25 to 55-year-olds who fought to be seen parents, workers, dreamers who know the cost of silence. I opened my diary, my resolve hardening. Lucas thought he could erase me, but he didn't know my code, didn't know my heart. The deadline was days away, and I was ready to make my app flawless. I added a new feature, a community feedback loop where users could report unsafe areas, crowdsourcing safety and It was ambitious, but it felt right, like giving my neighborhood a voice. I tested it on a chilly walk to the library, my breath fogging as the app rerouted me past a dark alley. "This is mine," I whispered, pride surging. But Lucas was ready, too, his plan darker than I'd imagined. 2 days before the competition, he strode into class, a USB drive dangling from his keychain. "Nailed the app last night," he announced, his voice booming. "Coding's a beast, but I got it done." The room lit up, cheers, fist bumps, Miss Jenkins's hesitant nod. My heart stopped, my vision blurring as classmates turned to Lucas, their tech hero. He'd copied my code from the shared drive, the one I'd stupidly trusted him with, and now he was stealing my soul's work. The principal, stopping by, clapped Lucas's shoulder. "Chicago's proud of you," he said, and a news crew filming for WGN caught it all. Lucas's grin plastered across their lens. I sat there, my diary open on my lap, my timestamps screaming the truth, but no one looked my way. Lucas met my eyes, his smirk cold like he knew I wouldn't fight back. The racism wasn't just in his light, was in the room's willingness to believe him, in the system that made his word gold and mine dust. I went home, my bag heavy, my spirit heavier. I locked my door, my laptop's glow the only light. Tears fell, but they weren't just pain, they were fury, a vow to reclaim what was mine. I thought of my cousin, my dad, Aisha, Ms. Jenkins, all the people who believed in me. I opened my code, my fingers steady, and started weaving a hidden validation check that would crash the app unless my key, a string only I knew, was entered. It was a gamble, a spark that could burn everything, but I was done being invisible. Lucas thought he'd won, thought his privilege would carry him. He didn't know I was rewriting the game, and as I saved my code, my dad's words rang true. My work would sing, and it would be louder than his lies. My code was my truth, but as I sat in Dunbar High School's computer lab, the glow of my laptop couldn't drown out the sting of Lucas Bennett's betrayal. He'd stolen my AI app reline I'd bled for. Every late night I'd spent weaving safety into Chicago's streets and claimed it as his own in front of 500 people, teachers, and a WGN news crew. The memory of his smirk, his blue eyes daring me to challenge him, burned like a fresh wound. I'm Nia Thompson, a 17-year-old black girl who's learned that brilliance isn't enough when the world assumes a 6'2" white boy like Lucas is the genius. But this wasn't just about credit. It was about the racism that let him erase me. The kind that 25 to 55-year-olds know too well when your work is overlooked, your voice silenced, because you don't fit the mold. Lucas's lie wasn't a spur-of-the-moment grab. It was a calculated move, rooted in the privilege that told him he could take what was mine and no one would question it. I wanted to scream, to storm the stage and show my digital diary, its timestamps proving every line was mine. But fear held me back, fear of being the angry black girl, the one they'd dismiss before hearing. So I sat, my 5'4" frame rigid, my heart racing, while the auditorium cheered for a fraud. That moment changed me, not because I broke, but because I decided to fight smarter, to let my code carve my justice. The days after Lucas's stunt were a blur of humiliation and resolve. At school his face was everywhere, posters in the hallways proclaiming Chicago's tech star. His grin plastered on the school's Instagram, racking up 3,000 likes. Classmates swarmed him, asking for coding tips he couldn't give, while I walked past, invisible, my backpack heavy with my laptop and the truth. Miss Carla Jenkins, my computer science teacher, caught me in the hall, her eyes sharp with worry. "Naya, what happened up there?" she asked, her voice low, her own battles as a black woman in tech etched in her frown. I swallowed my throat tight. "He took it, Miss Jenkins. All of it." She nodded, her hand on my shoulder. "I've seen this before, but you're stronger than they know. Show them." Her words were a lifeline, but the weight of Lucas's lie pressed harder. He wasn't just stealing credit. He was rewriting my story, turning my app build to keep my cousin safe, to give my community a voice into his trophy. The racism wasn't just in his theft. It was in the ease with which everyone believed him, in the principal's proud nod, in the news crew's fawning questions. I felt it like a punch, the kind that leaves you gasping, the kind that makes you question if you'll ever be seen. At home, I locked myself in my room, my laptop open, my digital diary glaring back. 1:14 a.m. added community feedback loop. 4:37 a.m. tested alert system. Each entry was proof, but proof meant nothing if no one listened. I thought of my dad, his hands rough from years driving CTA buses, telling me to let my work sing. I thought of Aisha, my debate team friend, her fierce eyes urging me to fight. But tears came first, hot and unstoppable, not just for me but for every time I'd been overlooked. Every time my ideas were dismissed because I wasn't Lucas. My mum, a librarian who'd spent years shelving books and dreams, knocked softly. "Naya, talk to me," she said, her voice warm. I opened the door, my face wet, and spilled everything Lucas's lie. The auditorium's cheers, the posters that made him a hero. She pulled me close, her arms steady. "They can't take your mind, your heart, your code," she said. "You're Naya Thompson, and you'll make them see." Her belief was a spark, igniting something fierce. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry, and that anger was power. Lucas's villainy wasn't just in his theft, it was in his confidence that I'd stay silent, that the world would always choose him. I'd seen him in the cafeteria, surrounded by his basketball crew, spinning tales of coding marathons that never happened. His lies were bold, but his motive was clear. He needed the scholarship to secure his college apps. His dad's law firm connections not enough to guarantee a spot at Northwestern. Lucas didn't just want glory, he wanted to cement his place in a system that rewarded him for existing, while I had to claw for every inch. His privilege was a weapon, sharpened by the racism that made his word gospel and mine a whisper. I decided to weaponize my code instead. The competition was 5 days away, and I had a plan not to destroy Lucas, but to expose him. I opened my app, my fingers steady, and deepened the validation check I'd started. A trigger that would lock the app unless my unique key, a hashed string tied to my initials, was entered. It was like a digital signature, invisible to anyone who didn't know the code's soul. And Lucas didn't. He'd copied my files from our shared drive, but he hadn't studied them, hadn't cared to understand the app's heart. I tested it, watching the app crash with the bold access denied when I skipped the key, then run smoothly when I entered it. My pulse quickened, a mix of fear and thrill. This was risky. Tampering with a competition entry could backfire, but staying silent was riskier. Letting Lucas erase me was a loss I couldn't bear. The 25 to 55-year-old audience knows this gamble the moment you choose to stand up, knowing the cost but refusing to bow. I added a new layer to the app, a live chat feature for users to share safety tips, inspired by Aisha's debate team strategy of building community voice. It wasn't just a technical flex. It was my way of saying my app wasn't just code, it was for Chicago, for my cousin, for every kid dodging trouble on these streets. I tested it on my walk to school, my phone pinging with a mock tip about a safe shortcut through Bronzeville. Pride swelled, but so did dread. Lucas's lie was growing, and I had to be ready. At school, the hype around Lucas was suffocating. He gave a speech at an assembly, 800 students packed in, his voice smooth as he talked about overcoming coding challenges. I sat in the back, my nails digging into my palms. Aisha beside me, her jaw tight. "He's full of it," she whispered, but the crowd ate it up. Teachers nodding, the principal beaming. Lucas's eyes found mine, his smirk sharper, like he knew he'd won. But Aisha wasn't having it. After the assembly, she cornered me in the library, her hijab framing her fierce expression. "Naya, you can't let him do this. You're not just fighting for you, you're fighting for us." She meant every black girl, every brown kid, every underdog who'd been sidelined. Her words hit hard, reminding me of the stakes. I told her about my trigger, my voice low, and her eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, but risky. You need backup." She offered to dig into Lucas's crew, to see if his friends were in on it, her debate skills ready to uncover dirt. I nodded, grateful, but scared. Lucas wasn't alone. His basketball buddies, led by a kid named Ryan, were his shield, their loyalty fierce and their influence wide. Ryan, a wiry junior with a mean streak, had already started rumors, whispering that I was just helping Lucas, planting seeds to discredit me before I could speak. Lucas's villainy wasn't just personal, it was strategic, a chess game, where he used his social capital to bury me. I saw it in the way he worked the room, charming teachers, joking with the news crew, his lies polished to a shine. He wasn't just stealing my app, he was stealing my future, banking on the racism that made his story believable and mine suspect. My dad saw my struggle over dinner. His fork paused as he studied me. "You look like you're carrying the world, Nia," he said. I admitted Lucas's betrayal, my voice shaking. He leaned forward, his bus driver's hand steady. "Folks like him think they can take what's yours because they've always gotten away with it. But your code's your power. Use it." His words were a call to arms, echoing the resilience of every worker who's been passed over, every parent who's fought for their kid shot. I went back to my laptop, my diary open, logging my trigger. 9:52 p.m., finalized validation lock, but Lucas's reach was growing. The next day I overheard him in the hall, talking to Ryan, his voice low. Nia won't say anything. She knows her place. My blood boiled, but I kept walking. My diary tucked in my bag, my plan locked in my mind. Aisha texted me later, her message urgent. Ryan's been bragging about Lucas owning the competition. She'd heard him in the debate room, hinting they'd handle anyone who got in Lucas's way. Fear crept inward if they knew about my trigger, but I pushed it down, focusing on my app's new chat feature, imagining it saving someone. On a dark Chicago night, Miss Jenkins pulled me aside again, her eyes searching. Nia, I'm hearing Lucas's name everywhere, but not yours. What's your plan? I hesitated, then whispered about my trigger. Her face tightened, but she nodded. Be careful, but be bold. You've earned this. Her support was a shield, but the battle was mine. The competition was 2 days away, and Lucas's lie was a tidal wave. Posts called him Dunbar's prodigy, and a local blog ran a feature on his tech journey. I walked through school, my head high but my heart heavy, whispers trailing me like shadows. Lucas caught me at my locker, his voice casual but cold. You're part of something big, Nia. Don't mess it up. His words weren't a request, they were a warning, laced with the racism that assumed I'd stay small. But I wasn't small, not anymore. That night I triple-checked my trigger, my fingers trembling, my diary logging every step. The world might believe Lucas now, but my code was ready to speak, and when it did, it would roar. The air crackled with anticipation as I stood backstage at Chicago's McCormick Place, my heart thumping like a bass drum, my 5'4" frame dwarfed by the towering screens and the 1,200 people packed into the hall for the national coding competition. I'm Nia Thompson, a 17-year-old black girl whose AI app, my app, not Lucas Bennett's, could win a $75,000 scholarship and a Google internship, but only if my plan worked. Lucas, the 6'2" white boy who'd stolen my code and claimed it as his, was out there, charming the crowd. His lies about sleepless coding nights plastered across X and local news. He thought he'd erase me, banking on the racism that made his word gold and mine dust. But I'd embedded a validation trigger in the app, a digital lock only I could unlock, and today, it would either expose him or ruin me. The weight of that gamble pressed on my chest, but so did the fire of knowing I'd built something to keep my Chicago streets safer. Something Lucas could never understand. This wasn't just about a prize. It was about proving my worth in a world that too often dismissed black girls like me. A truth that hits home for the 25 to 55-year-olds who fought to be seen at work, in schools, or in their own dreams. Lucas's villainy wasn't just his theft, it was his smug certainty that he'd get away with it. His privilege a shield polished by a system that cheered him while ignoring me. I'd seen it in his smirk at school, his warning to not mess it up, his basketball crew spreading rumors to keep me small. But I wasn't small, not today, not with my digital diary of timestamps, my best friend Aisha's fierce support, and Ms. Jenkins's belief in my shine. The competition hall buzzed. Tech scouts from Google and IBM scribbling notes, banners touting future innovators swaying above. My app, designed to map safe walking routes and alert community centers, was my heart and code. Its live chat feature, a new addition I'd built to let users share real-time safety tips, inspired by my cousin's mugging last year. I'd tested it on my walk through Englewood, my phone pinging a tip about a well-lit shortcut, and pride had swelled in me, even as Lucas's lies threatened to bury it. He'd copied my code from our shared drive, but he didn't know its soul, didn't know the trigger I'd woven, a hashed key tied to my initials that would crash the app with access denied unless I entered it. I'd triple-checked it last night, my fingers trembling, my diary logging. 10:19 p.m., finalized trigger key. Aisha had texted me, her debate team instincts sharp. Ryan's been hyping Lucas up on X, saying he's a lock to win. Be ready. I was ready, but fear gnawed at me. What if the judges blamed me for the crash? What if Lucas spun it to make me the villain? My dad's words echoed. Let your work sing, Nia. I clung to that, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor as I paced backstage, my braided hair tucked under a cap, my nerves electric. Lucas was out front, shaking hands with judges, his navy blazer crisp, his confidence a performance honed by years of getting what he didn't earn. His dad, a loop lawyer, sat in the front row, nodding like this was his son's coronation. I caught Ms. Jenkins's eye in the crowd, her face tense but hopeful, her own battles against tech's biases mirrored in mine. She'd warned me to be bold but careful, and I felt her strength. Even as Lucas's crew and a few others lurked nearby, their whispers sharp with menace. The MC called our team, Dunbar High, Lucas Bennett and Nia Thompson, and the crowd roared, mostly for Lucas, his name a hashtag trending with hashtag Chicago Tech Star. He strode to the stage, USB drive in hand, his grin wide, while I followed, my head low, my hands clammy. The judges, a panel of 5 including Dr. Simone Ellis, a black Google engineer whose TED Talk I'd watched a dozen times, watched intently. Lucas plugged in the USB, his voice smooth as he introduced our app, spinning a tale of collaborative innovation that made my stomach churn. He hit run, and for an agonizing 10 seconds, the app loaded perfectly safe routes mapped on a Chicago grid, the live chat window active, the crowd murmuring approval. My heart sank, thinking my trigger had failed. But then it happened. The screen flickered, froze, and blared access denied, invalid key in red letters. The app crashing like a glass tower, gasps rippled through the hall, cameras flashing. Lucas's face palling us as stabbed at the keyboard, muttering just a glitch. Hold on. The crowd shifted, whispers growing. Students from other schools leaned forward, some smirking, others stunned. Dr. Ellis raised an eyebrow, her pen pausing while Lucas's dad frowned, his phone already out, probably texting his son's excuses. Lucas tried again, rebooting, but the error screamed louder, and I saw panic in his eyes. The first crack in his polished mask. His villainy wasn't just his lie, it was his ignorance, his assumption he could fake what I'd built. He'd never studied the code, never cared about the community it served, and now his emptiness was bare. The head judge, a white man with glasses, leaned forward. Mr. Bennett, can you explain the key validation process in your algorithm? Lucas froze, his mouth opening, no words coming. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his charm useless against the truth. Another judge, a Latina professor, pressed. How does the app handle real-time user inputs in the chat feature? Lucas stammered. It's like automated, and the crowd tittered, his basketball crew shifting uncomfortably. Ryan shot me a glare, like I'd planned his boys for, and maybe I had, but this was justice, not revenge. Dr. Ellis tapped her mic, her voice calm but firm. Is there anyone else on this team who can explain? All eyes turned to me. 1,200 pairs, heavy with doubt, curiosity, and something else, hope. Lucas spun, his eyes wide, pleading silently, but I wasn't here to save him. I stepped forward, my cap off, my braids swinging, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I can, I said, and the hall went silent, every breath held. I sat at the keyboard, my fingers flying, pulling up the code's backend on the projector, lines scrolling like my life's story. There's a validation check here, I said, highlighting my trigger, to ensure only the coder can run it. I built it to protect the app's integrity. The crowd murmured, impressed, as I entered my key on T17. My initials in a jand, the app sprang to life, mapping routes, pinging alerts, the chat buzzing with a test message I'd coded. Safe path found. Applause broke out, loud and real, not for Lucas, but for me. Dr. Ellis smiled, jotting notes, while Lucas stood frozen, his face a mix of shock and rage. I kept going, explaining the chat feature, the crime data API, the community heart of it, all, my voice growing stronger with every word. The 25 to 55-year-olds know this moment the second you claim your space, the rush of being seen after years of being sidelined. But Lucas wasn't done. He stepped forward, his voice shaky but loud. I helped design it. Okay, Nia just coded the details. The lie was desperate, and the crowd sensed it, their applause fading. Dr. Ellis's eyes narrowed. Mr. Bennett, what was your role in the key validation? Lucas blinked, his mouth dry. I oversaw it. Laughter rippled, sharp and unforgiving, as Ryan slunk lower in his seat. I took a breath, my heart pounding, and faced the judges. I wrote every line. I said, my voice clear. The routes, the alerts, the chat, every piece is mine. The hall erupted, students cheering, cameras flashing, Miss Jenkins clapping. From the crowd, her eyes wet. Dr. Ellis stood, handing me her card, her voice warm. Naya, I'd like to discuss a mentorship after this. You're exceptional. The crowd roared, my dad in the back wiping his eyes, Aisha pumping her fist. I smiled, real and hard-earned. But Lucas's glare burned into me, his privilege shattered but his anger alive. The judges moved on, but the moment lingered. My app, my truth, my triumph, all undeniable. Aisha rushed me backstage, her voice fierce. You did it, Naya, you showed them. But her eyes flicked to Lucas's crew, Ryan whispering to others, their faces dark. Ms. Jenkins joined us, her voice low. You were brilliant, but be ready, Lucas won't take this quietly. I nodded, my diary in my bag, its timestamps, my armor, but fear crept in. Lucas's villainy wasn't just his lie, it was his need to win, to keep me down, rooted in a racism that hated seeing me rise. I'd exposed him, but at what cost? As we left the stage, a text from an unknown number hit my phone. You'll regret this. My breath caught the halls. Cheers fading, my victory suddenly fragile. Lucas was down, but his fight wasn't over, and neither was mine. My triumph at McCormick Place, where I'd exposed Lucas Bennett's lie and claimed my AI app as my own, felt like a sunrise after a long night. But the glow faded fast when I saw the text. You'll regret this. The words, from an unknown number, hit like a Chicago winter wind, sharp and chilling, reminding me that Lucas's defeat didn't end the fight, it started a new one. I'm Nia Thompson, a 17-year-old black girl who'd just outcoded a 6'2" white boy whose privilege let him steal my work, banking on the racism that assumed he was the star. But now, with my validation trigger revealing my truth to 1,200 people, Lucas's mask was off, and his anger fueled by the same system that had propped him up was turning on me. The 25 to 55-year-olds who faced backlash for speaking truth, whether at work or in their communities, know this fear. The moment your victory sparks a storm, when standing tall makes you a target. Lucas's villainy wasn't just his theft, it was his refusal to lose, his need to punish me for daring to shine brighter than him. I clutched my phone, Dr. Simone Ellis's business card tucked in my pocket, her offer of a Google mentorship, a lifeline, but the text's threat loomed larger. I'd won the crowd's cheers, but I hadn't won safety, and as I left the competition hall, Aisha's arm around me. Miss Jenkins's warning, "Lucas won't take this quietly," rang true. The backlash began the next day at Dunbar High School, where the air felt thick with whispers and glares. My app, built to map safe routes and alert community centers, had gone viral on X, a clip of my stage moment trending with hashtag #NIA the coder. But Lucas's basketball crew, led by Ryan, spun a darker narrative. In the hallway, my locker was defaced, snitch scrawled in black marker across the metal, the word a dagger aimed at my heart. I stood there, my 5'4" frame rigid, my braided hair swinging as I fought back tears. The racism not just in the act but in the assumption I'd stay silent, that a black girl couldn't fight back and win. Aisha, my debate team ally, saw it first, her eyes blazing. "This is Ryan's crew, Nia. They're mad Lucas got exposed." She snapped a photo, her voice fierce. "We're not letting this slide." But the harassment didn't stop there. By lunch, my phone buzzed with anonymous messages on X. "You set him up, liar. Enjoy your 15 minutes. It's over." Each one was a jab, crafted to make me doubt my victory, to make me feel small again. I sat alone in the cafeteria, my tray untouched, scrolling through the hate, my digital diary, my proof of every coded line tucked in my bag, useless against this tide. The 25 to 55-year-old audience knows this pain, the coworker who sabotages you after a promotion, the system that punishes your success with whispers of undeserving. Lucas's role in this was clear, even if he stayed in the shadows. I saw him in the hall, his blue eyes cold, his crew circling like wolves, Ryan whispering in his ear. Lucas wasn't just humiliated, he was orchestrating my punishment. His privilege now a weapon to reclaim his narrative. His dad, the loop lawyer, had already called the school, spinning my trigger as sabotage, a lie that twisted my justice into betrayal. Ryan, his loyal enforcer, was the muscle, a wiry junior whose loyalty to Lucas was matched only by his resentment of me, a black girl who dared to upend their world. Their racism wasn't loud slurs but a calculated campaign, to silence me, to make my triumph a cautionary tale. Ms. Jenkins found me after class, her face tight with worry. "Nia, the principal's getting pressure from Lucas's dad. They're questioning your trigger." I stared, my heart sinking. "Questioning me after I proved it was mine?" She nodded, her voice low. "I know, but they're worried about the school's image. You need to protect yourself." Her words hit hard, echoing the institutional betrayal so many face when truth takes a back seat to optics. When a black girl's brilliance is a liability, I thought of my dad, his steady hands on the CTA bus wheel, telling me to let my work sing. But singing felt impossible when my voice was drowned out. Aisha wasn't giving up though. She met me in the library, her debate notes swapped for a plan. "I've been tracking Ryan's X posts," she said, showing me screenshots. "He's rallying Lucas's crew, calling you a cheater. We need evidence there behind this." Her fierceness was a spark, but fear lingered. What if they escalated? My mom saw it in me that night. My shoulders slumped over dinner. "Nia, what's got you so heavy?" she asked, her librarian's eyes searching. I told her about the locker, the messages, the school's doubt, my voice cracking. She stood, pulling me into a hug. "They're scared of you, baby, because you showed the world what you can do. Don't let them dim that." Her words were a bomb, but the threats felt closer, like shadows creeping in. I needed to fight back, not just for me but for every kid who'd been erased, every worker who'd been undermined. My app was more than code, it was a promise to my community, and I wouldn't let Lucas's crew destroy it. I opened my laptop, my diary logging, 8:47 p.m., planning defense. Aisha's idea to track Ryan gave me a new one, a digital forensics tool to trace the anonymous messages. I'd built a network tracker before, a side project to monitor school Wi-Fi usage, and now it could be my weapon. I spent hours coding, my fingers flying, analyzing X metadata, cross-referencing IP addresses, and digging into Dunbar's network logs. My heart raced as patterns emerged, a cluster of messages sent from the school's media center at 3:15 p.m., tied to a device registered to Ryan Patel. I gasped, my screen glowing with proof, but doubt crept in. Was Lucas behind it too? Ryan was loyal, but Lucas was the puppet master, his need to reclaim his tech star status, a fire that burned hotter than shame. I compiled screenshots, timestamps, and logs into a folder, my diary noting 1:23 a.m., traced threats to Ryan, but the harassment grew darker. The next day, my gym bag was slashed, my notebook inside torn, the word fake scribbled on it. I stood in the locker room, my hand shaking, Aisha at my side, her voice steady. "This is personal, Naya, they're scared you're not backing down." She was right, Lucas's crew wasn't just bullying, they were trying to break me. Their racism a blade that cut deeper because it was unseen by those in power. The principal, Mr. Hayes, called me to his office, his tie loose, his voice strained. "Naya, there's talk you tampered with the app. To embarrass Lucas, we need to investigate." I stared, my blood boiling. "Investigate me? I proved I built it." He sighed, avoiding my eyes. "Lucas's family is influential. We can't have a scandal." The racism wasn't just in his words, it was in his priorities, protecting a white boy's future over a black girl's truth. I left my diary clutched tight, my resolve hardening. Ms. Jenkins met me outside, her eyes fierce. "Nia, I'm on your side, but you need hard evidence. The school's scared of lawsuits." I nodded. "My forensics tool my ace, but fear not what if they twisted it against me." Aisha pushed me to act. "Her debate skills now a war plan. We'll present your proof to the school board," she said, drafting a statement, her hijab framing her determined face. "You're not alone." Her friendship was my anchor, but the threats didn't stop. Another text hit. "Stop now, or it gets worse." My breath caught, my room feeling smaller. The racism not just in the words but in the system that let them thrive, the school that looked away. My dad sat with me that night, his voice calm but firm. "Naya, they're lashing out because you've showed them up. Your codes, your shield, use it." His pride, born of years driving through Chicago's toughest streets, gave me strength. I thought of Dr. Ellis, her card, a promise of a future, and I knew I had to keep going. For her, for my cousin, for every kid who'd been told they weren't enough. I added a new feature to my APO heat map of reported incidents, crowdsourced from user tips, a way to shine light on danger zones. I tested it, my phone glowing with a map of Englewood's risks, and felt a surge of purpose. But Lucas's shadow loomed. I overheard Ryan in the hall, his voice low. "Lucas says she's done if she keeps pushing." The threat was real, and Lucas's villainy was its heart. His need to control the narrative, a fire that burned through his crew. I compiled my evidence, my diary logging 2:41 a.m., finalized proof package. Aisha and I planned to confront the principal tomorrow, but another message hit. "You're not safe." My heart stopped, the racism not just in the threat but in the world that let it grow. And as I stared at my screen, I knew this fight was far from over. The anonymous text, "You're not safe," still echoed in my mind as I walked into Dunbar High School, my 5'4" frame tense, my digital diary clutched like a shield. I'm Nia Thompson, a 17-year-old black girl who'd outsmarted Lucas Bennett, a 6'2" white boy whose privilege let him steal my AI app, only to see his lies crumble when my validation trigger exposed him at the national coding competition. But the backlash vandalized lockers, slashed bags, and threats orchestrated by Lucas's crew, led by Ryan, had turned my triumph into a battlefield. The racism not just in their actions but in a system that questioned my truth to protect Lucas's future. I'd traced Ryan's threats with my forensics tool, my evidence airtight, but fear lingered. Would the school listen, or would they bury me to save face? For the 25 to 55-year-olds who faced retaliation for challenging injustice, this moment is wrath. A second you stand up, knowing the cost, but refusing to bow. Lucas's villainy wasn't just his theft or his lies. It was his refusal to let a black girl outshine him, his privilege a fire that burned through his crew's harassment, fueled by a racism that assumed I'd fade quietly. But I was done with fading, and with Aisha, Miss Jenkins, my parents, and Dr. Ellis in my corner, I was ready to end this fight and start something bigger, a legacy that would echo beyond Chicago's streets. The morning after the latest threat, I marched to Principal Hayes' office, my laptop heavy in my bag, Aisha at my side, her debate team fire blazing. My evidence, screenshots, IP logs, timestamps linking Ryan to the X messages, was a 20-page report, my digital diary's truth woven into every line. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady as I set the flash drive on Hayes' desk. "This proves Ryan's been harassing me," I said, my eyes locked on his. "And Lucas is part of it. They're trying to scare me silent because I proved the app was mine." Hayes leaned back, his face pale. Lucas's dad's influence, a shadow in the room. Miss Jenkins, standing by the door, nodded, her presence a quiet strength. "Nia's telling the truth, and we've failed her by not acting sooner," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. Aisha handed over her own notes, detailing Ryan's X posts, rallying Lucas's crew, her handwriting fierce. Hayes skimmed the report, his brow furrowing, and for the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes, not about me, but about the system he'd upheld. Lucas's racism wasn't just personal, it was institutional. The school's hesitation a mirror of workplaces that prioritize optics over justice, a truth the 25 to 55-year-old audience knows too well. Before Hayes could respond, Lucas burst in, his face red, Ryan trailing behind, their basketball swagger gone. "She's lying," Lucas shouted, pointing at me. "She set me up to look bad." His desperation was raw, his privilege cracking. Under the weight of truth, Ryan, his wiry frame tense, tried to back him in ears, just jealous, making it all up. But their voices faltered as Hayes held up my report. The evidence undeniable. I stood taller, my fear giving way to power. "I built the app, Lucas. Every line, every feature, the safe routes, the alerts, the heat map. You stole it, and now you're scared because the world knows." The room went silent, Aisha's eyes blazing with pride, Ms. Jenkins's nod firm. Lucas's dad stormed in, his suit crisp, his voice sharp. "This is outrageous. My son's reputation is at stake." But Hayes, for once, held firm, his voice low. "Mr. Bennett, we're investigating based on evidence, not influence." It was a small victory, but it felt like a tidal wave. The racism that had propped Lucas up finally facing a crack. The fallout was swift. Ryan was expelled for cyberbullying, his ex-account suspended after my report leaked online. The hashtag NIA, the coder hashtag now trending with justice for Nia. Lucas faced harsher consequences. His Google internship offer was rescinded, his scholarship applications flagged for review, his tech star myth shattered. A viral WGN clip of my competition triumph aired, showing me running my app, my voice steady, Lucas's lies exposed. The school issued a public apology to me and my family, posted on their website, a rare admission of failure that sparked debates about bias in education. Ms. Jenkins stood before our class, her voice thick. "I misjudged Nia and I'm sorry. She's shown us what courage looks like." Her words healed a wound I hadn't named, and I saw Aisha wipe her eyes, her friendship a rock through it all. Lucas became a ghost, his crew scattered, his once loud presence reduced to whispers in the halls. Graffiti on his locker read "Code Thief," a bitter echo of my own pain. But I didn't gloat, I'd won something bigger than revenge. My app grew, too, its heat map feature now used by a Southside community center, saving a teen from a risky route the week after the competition. I added a new tool, a mentorship platform within the app, connecting young coders to pros like Dr. Ellis, who invited me to speak at a Chicago Tech Summit. 2,000 attendees watching as I shared my story. "Code is power," I told them, my voice clear, "and no one can take your truth if you build it strong." Dr. Ellis hugged me after, her mentorship a bridge to a Google internship next summer. My 13-inch laptop now a key to a future I only dreamed of. Aisha, inspired, launched a school podcast on equity, her first episode featuring me, our laughter a balm after months of battle. My parents sat me down one night, their pride a quiet glow. "You didn't just win, Nia," my dad said, his bus driver's hand steady. "You've changed the game." My mom, her librarian's eyes soft, added, "You showed them who you are." Their love was my foundation, their sacrifices the reason I'd fought so hard. I started a coding club at the Chicago Public Library, teaching Black and Latino teens to build apps. My first class of 15 kids coding their own safety tools, their eyes bright with possibility. My app's user base hit 1,000. Its alert saving a grandmother from a late-night walk through a dicey block, a story shared on X that brought tears to my eyes. But the real victory was in me, in the girl who'd stood up when the world wanted. Her small, reflecting on my journey, I see it like lines of code, each challenge a bug, each triumph a fix. I learned that racism, like Lucas's lies, thrives in silence, but truth, backed by evidence and courage, can break it apart. I learned to trust my voice, even when it shook, because my work, my app, my heart was undeniable. I learned that allies like Aisha, Ms. Jenkins, and Dr. Ellis are lifelines, their belief a shield against doubt. Most of all, I learned that my power isn't just in coding, it's in refusing to let anyone rewrite my story. The racism I faced, from Lucas's theft to the school's hesitation, wasn't just personal. It was a system that assumes black girls like me are less. But I proved it wrong, not with anger but with brilliance. My app wasn't just a tool, it was a promise to my community, a light in Chicago's shadows, and I'd keep building, keep shining, for every kid who feels unseen. As I walked through Dunbar's halls, sunlight streaming through the windows, my sneakers light, I knew this was just the start. I'd coded my truth, and it was louder than any lie. If you were in a similar situation, facing racial bias in group dynamics, credit theft and dishonesty, or stereotypes about intelligence, how would you approach it to achieve the best possible outcome? Would you gather evidence like I did, lean on allies, or find another way to let your truth sing? The world's waiting for your code, your story, your light. Don't let anyone dim it.